St. Louis and Chicago were the two biggest train hubs in the nation. So I couldn't even begin to tell you how many people passed through, servicemen and women passed through Union Station during the war. And there were USOs all over the city. And many women felt it was their patriotic duty to go and dance with soldiers and sailors and give them refreshments and everything.
We had hot biscuits, homemade, and many other boys had never been away from home, and that gave them a homey feeling to have biscuits. And the young women worked very hard. Everybody could make biscuits.
And the men with a home-cooked meal and some memories would be sent off again, leaving by train from Union Station. Some, of course, would never make it home.
They would have casualty lists in the paper every day, of those who had been killed, those who had been wounded, and those who were missing in action.
In the summer of 1943, St. Louis experienced a terrible wartime tragedy right here at home. The mayor, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and business and community leaders were invited to help demonstrate a military glider being made here for the Army. In mid-flight over Lambert Field, a wing broke off, and all 10 people on board were killed.
And my father had been invited to take that flight, and for some reason or other he didn't do it. I joined the glider troops about a month after that plane crash, and they weren't happy about that.
And that's what they were doing. They were praying for us that we'd come home and dreading the mail, hoping they didn't get a letter saying that their loved one had died or missing in action. That was what they were waiting. They were scared to death of the mail, people who were at home. But they went on and carried on just the same.
And life in St. Louis, at least on the surface, did appear to go on pretty much as it always had. And it was important to keep routines, keep busy, keep up the spirits back on the home front. That's why America decided it was best to keep playing baseball throughout the war. And the Cardinals were in the World Series 3 years in a row, winning in '42 and again in '44, in a matchup this city had never seen before and would never see again.
A family affair at St. Louis. Browns and Cards tangle in the series opener with Will Harridge, an interested bystander, and pitchers Cooper and Galehouse exchanging greetings. Major Billy Southworth, Jr. and family, as well as Governor Breaker and manager Southworth and Sewell. 33,000 fans pack Sportsman's Park to see the Cinderella Browns try for baseball's greatest triumph. It took the Browns quite a while to make the series, but look at them now. Anybody say anything about 2-to-1 odds? Anyway, St. Louis won. Though the Siegfried line is a tough nut to crack, the Yanks discover the secret and move on through the first defenses.
The war in Europe ended in May 1945. Japan surrendered in August. Both victories brought celebrations downtown, in Midtown, and in neighborhoods throughout the St. Louis area.
We tied a 55-gallon drum lid to the back end of the car with and drug that thing around the streets down there just to make some noise.
My mom and dad said, "Come on, we're going to go and celebrate." And I remember thinking, well, what are we celebrating? We had a little car, a convertible, Crosley. And I remember going at Elm Avenue and down Lockwood and honking and waving flags, and people were in the street and just shouting and dancing.
It was time now for the men to come home, and time to assess the gains and the losses and look to the future. All of the Fighting Nulfo brothers survived. So did Marie Long's brother, who really had, in his own way, helped save the world. Viv Lewis also got back okay, and at Jefferson Barracks, he met his daughter for the very first time.
And I remember, I think the first words she said was, looked out the window and she saw a horse. And she said, "Horsey," you know. He just looked at me with a big smile to think that he just didn't realize that she would be saying words. He was never wounded in the war, but it was, it did bear on his nerves. And it had taken him a while, I'd say a couple months at least, to get adjusted to, to things.
I saw marriages fail. And I saw some strengthened from this.
No community was untouched or unchanged, and American history continued to be written after the battles were over and the war was won. For here began the reunion of the parents, the men, the women, and the children who had each experienced in their own way a world war. The soldiers had their stories, but those who had stayed behind had also done their part. They too had been on the front lines of change, on the home front.